He is phenomenal. You could argue that he's one of the most accomplished players to ever play in the ELF. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ELF Science Center, episode 3. Happy Valentine's Day to all those who are celebrating. And I have got some more sign-ins to bring to you today. A packed show. Honestly, there's a lot going on in Europe at the moment. Less than 100 days to go. And of course, all of this is presented by Euronics, the proud sponsor of the ELF. That being said, let's get into some sign-ins. The first team I really want to talk about is the Helvetic Mercenaries. They're always a little bit of a strange team, to be honest. But they've had an exceptionally weird off-season. Now, I've segmented this segment into two pieces. I've got the gambles and the highs that they could potentially have, and then the potential lows that we could see with this team in the future. Because, like I said, some strange things. But the first, and probably for me the most impactful, is the re-signing of Milan Spiller. 1,008 yards in his rookie campaign, which is the first European to ever break 1,000 yards in the ELF, and he did it in his rookie season. Exceptional stuff. One of the league's bright spots, completely came out of nowhere last year. He was playing in the Swiss 3rd division not that long ago, before coming into the Mercenaries and becoming one of the league's young stars. He's an excellent route runner, he's fast, he's quick, he's got good hands, and I really do believe that he is the key to the Swiss future. Another key storyline going into this offseason was Aaron Jackson being signed by the Helvetic Mercenaries. Unfortunately, he will not be playing for them this year, but it's safe to say they have reloaded Keelan Cole, a former NFL receiver with nearly 100 games in the NFL. He had 748 receiving yards in his rookie season. He's a baller. He's a great ball tracker. He's fast. He's a great athlete. Can play all along the sidelines. He is phenomenal. You could argue that he's one of the most accomplished players to ever play in the ELF. This signing is incredible. It's not one that I expected. And this one is, I mean, the gamble isn't even really much of a gamble. You're getting a former NFL receiver in the ELF team. For me, that's only a good thing. And I think that it's going to be an exceptional signing down the stretch when they need the most experience. I mean, what can you say? This is exceptional stuff from the Helvetic Mercenaries. Continuing on this good stroke of signings by the Mercs, we have DeMarco Artis. He has been doing his thing in the Maple League, set a regular season sack record at defensive end. He is going to be an absolute menace. For comparison, his comp for me is Carl Kitchens. The 3-time Defensive Player of the Year is my comp for a guy who's making his first appearance in the ELF. If that isn't high praise, I don't know what is. He's hyper aggressive. He's great in the run. He's great in the pass. For me, he's one of the best players outside the ELF coming into the fold, and I think it's superb. Now, I know what you're thinking. The lows sounds a little bit derogatory, and that's not my intention. It's just the things that I feel could go wrong if, all the stuff doesn't go completely in the Mercs' favor and have a bit more high risk. High risk, potentially very high reward. That is kind of the definition of Isaiah Weed's playstyle. He is high risk, high reward. He is a gambler in the style of his play. He is very much a difficult player to watch from a scouting perspective because he'll pick apart these teams ruthlessly. 5-6 yard dink and dunks, middle of the field, outside numbers. He's doing a great job. Has an amazing, probably the best running quarterback in the league. But then he'll get a little bit overzealous and he'll throw a long bomb and it'll get picked off, or he'll get a little bit reckless with the ball in his hands and he'll fumble it, or something will just happen. Isaiah Weed's a very fun player to watch. No one's going to deny that at all. He's probably the most entertaining player in the ELF. However, he has not won a ton of games in the ELF. Cologne were fine. They had a few really great comeback wins on the back of Isaiah's work. But can Isaiah Weed lead a championship team? That is the risk, and that's what we need to see from him in order to elevate him to an elite level. Now, lastly, the Helvetic Mercenaries. Probably the strangest signing I've ever seen as an analyst and a scout in Europe. Jock Crawford, one of the league's all-time rushers, has moved to safety. Which is strange. He is 37 years old. He's a former all-star at running back. And you can understand why this one is a risk. And you can understand why I'm a little bit, I don't know if that's going to work. There's a ton of really great safeties that have played safety forever. I know Cole Coleman, Vienna last year, Hunter Nichols, Vienna last year, and Eddie Morales. They could have got at least one of them to come in and play safety. But they've gone for Jock Crawford, which is a little bit strange. And I know every single person I've ever met who has met Jock says how great of a person he is. I'm sure he is. It's just a strange move to have an A when you only get two of them on a running back who isn't going to play running back. If they signed him as a running back, there would have been a different conversation. It's just a little bit odd, and this is an opportunity for Jock to make me look so stupid and use this clip forever. I'm just a little bit, weary of if this is really going to work out for the Mercenaries. Next up, we have one of the most interesting teams of the whole offseason, the Stuttgart Surge. Relatively quiet, and then it announced a big rush of offensive talent. We'll start with Riley Hennessy and Alessandro Dragani. These are the two cores of the team. Riley's been there for a couple seasons now. He is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He can dice teams up. He can hit everywhere you need to on the field. Last season, the semi-final, they kind of fell apart, right? Now this is the revenge mission. That's how this has been framed. This is how the team is going into next season. Dragani has aged like a fine wine. One of the older offensive linemen, starting wise, but he's fantastic. He can run block, he can pass block, he's ultra aggressive, he can move. Everything you want from an import offensive lineman, that is Alessandro Dragani. He's been in Germany for years. He's a former unicorn. He is excellent, and this is two massive signings that they needed in order to try and get back up to the top in 2025. Now, I mentioned all offense, so we have obviously some more names to come in this segment because there are three players I think are going to be extremely impactful for the Surge going into next season. And the first I want to talk about is Tomoa Ayewo, the Irish running back, one of the best running backs in the league, criminally underrated. I think some of the people having him at the top have cooled down a little bit because he spent a lot of last season injured, but he is one of the best receiving backs in the league. In addition to his talent as a running back, he is one of the only dual backs. Like, there are not very many of those types in Europe, and he is the best at it. I think that he is in for a big, big comeback season. Honestly, if you're a fantasy player, he might be your Christian McCaffrey, your first overall pick. It's kind of similar, right? They need to stay on the field in order to get these, which is a bit of a concern after these last years for both of them. But Tomoa has massive upside. I would not be surprised to see him back in all-star competition this season. Now, I can't talk an awful lot about Roberto Miranda because he's spent the last few years in a Division I school in Arizona, so there isn't a crazy amount of tape on him. But to get a Division I athlete as a homegrown is a massive deal, obviously. It's not all about stats when it comes to D1 players. I think a lot of people forget this. The fact they're in D1 means they're some of the best athletes playing the sport. Speaking of which, Jeff Cotton, the newest receiver making his European debut, former NFL practice squad player, has been around, also in Idaho, was a D1 athlete as well. He's a sideline ball catching, he can pluck the ball out of the air. His ball tracking is superb. He can high point really, really well. I think that he's going to be Riley's sideline deep threat. He is quite similar to Darryl Stewart, who they just lost. I think that's a big signing. I do think that Cotton's going to have an immediate impact. He looks like he can play all around the receiver core. Would not be surprised to have this offense be among the most productive going into the year. They've got a great running back, a former practice squad receiver, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and one of the best units in front of all that. The Surge are a team to watch as they reload and look for revenge in 2025. The Raiders are another team that's just a little bit quiet this offseason. They had a few signings. They kind of went out the gates fast and then have kind of simmered down a little bit. But they've started very evidently in the trenches. But let's just quickly touch on who they brought back who aren't in the trenches. Some very familiar Austrian faces, Raiders kind of through and through. Marco Schneider and Lucas Hasselventer. Marco, of course, the Rookie of the Year nominee, just a couple seasons back, one of the better slot receivers in the league. He kind of had a little bit more of a down year this year because they transitioned to such a heavy running offense with Hasselventer. Bonatti as well, but Hasselventer is young, he's athletic, he's quick, he's strong and physical. He's one of the better running backs in the league, and people don't even know about him. They know of him because him and Bonatti split the duty of running back so much, but he could honestly start a lot of teams in Europe, and I would not be surprised to see him get a bigger role. The only problem with the Raiders is they have Bonatti, they have Hasselventer, they have Tim Tonko, they have such a stacked positional group that, it's a lot of mouths to feed in that backfield, but those are two very successful Austrian players that could be imperative to them overcoming their Austrian rivals. But of course, the Raiders need some ease as well. And for that, they've got Pepler and Dusan Novanovic. These guys are so good, and I love both of these signings. Pepler, widely regarded as one of the best offensive linemen in the league, super balanced, can do a little bit of everything, can play kind of everywhere in that interior. One of the hearts of the Rhein Fire dynasty that we've come to see. He's now gone to Innsbruck. Big surprise, but he's going to be massive for them, especially in that run game that they're so well known for. And then on reverse, you've got Dusan, Serbian defensive end, another bobsledder. If you don't know how good Serbian American football players are, a lot of them come from bobsledding. So explosive off the line, and that's part of what translates between the two sports. His run game actually went up a lot this year. But he has one of the best releases off the line. He's super quick, he's super athletic, and he's going to be an instant fan favorite for the Raiders because he is so damn good, and I'm predicting both of those to be among the top of their positional groups come All-Star voting. Now we have what the Raiders have. Now what do they need? I think they need to keep a lot of the players they had last year, and they need to improve on that. They need to get some more lockdown DBs. They had Devon Taylor last year, who was so good. They need to get Niederlander back, one of the best young Austrian talents in the entire league at corner. I think they need to stack that up because a lot of teams they play against have got ruthless pass games, especially Vienna. They want to overcome Vienna for the first time in ELF history. They could potentially win. They're going to have to lock up those receiver cores. That's what they need. Whether or not they get it, we got to wait and see. Like I said, they've been quiet. They need to find their quarterback. They had a few quarterback issues last year. 3 players last year at quarterback. They need to have some stability there because that's been a big problem with them in the ELF is finding a quarterback that can stay with them. Ever since Sean Shelton left on top as an MVP, they've struggled to find that. That's what they need if they want to come close to competing for the playoffs and beating their Austrian rivals. There are so many different aspects I wish I could discuss with the Rhein Fire. Let's just start with the fact they're on a three-peat. This is something that does not happen very often in any kind of sport. The Rhein Fire have got to. They need another one. However, it's going to be a very different team. 2 MVPs of the team are gone. Their offensive coordinator is gone. A lot of their team is left. Pablo, we just mentioned, he's gone as well. Let's just look at what they have to remain first. And of course, there are tons of guys. I wish everyone at Rhein Fire, I wish I could talk about you guys for a lot longer than this. I'm restricted, right? I can't talk about every single player. So let's start with the 3 All-Stars that are confirmed returning. Sven Bedenbach, one of the best tackles in the league, German homegrown, has been a rock for them. There are rumors that he wasn't going to come back this year, but he has. I think the three-peat is why. We'll see if he can climb that mountain once again. He's a phenomenal player. Cannot wait to see him again. Amari Williams, multiple-time All-Star, the best safety in the league. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Phenomenal ball player. Big player as well. Can return kicks. Can return anything for a pick six. People just kind of stopped throwing his way very wisely. So towards the latter half of the year, I don't know why it took him 3 years to notice that. If you don't throw towards the ball hawking safety, you won't get the ball. But it took him a while. Nevertheless, Hugo Carglass, former Division 1 D tackle. Massive breakout year for him last year. He came in a little bit later. People didn't really... I knew who he was. And then he unleashed that spin move and got like 4 sacks in one game. It was absolutely phenomenal. He got an all-star mention in his first season. One of the best young German talents that there is in the country. As I said, former Division 1 player. There are a ton of other players that have returned, but those are the big 3 so far in my opinion. Now, of course, with all the people that have left, they had to get in some new faces, and I think they did a very good job. Chad Jeffries, probably the most efficient quarterback in the entirety of Europe. He's been here for years. He's a veteran at this point. He's been dotted around. He's finally landed in Rhein, former Munich Raven. And I think a lot of people, because the Ravens were blowing a lot of people out, they kind of missed his numbers because he was kind of near the Offensive Player of the Year. Again, he was Offensive Player of the Year nominee the season before. He's so efficient with the ball, nearly a 70% clip when it comes to accuracy. He does not turn the ball over often, except like that one random game in Milan that was just a complete blip. But he's an excellent player. I think that he's a change of pace from Jadrian. The Rhein Fire fans are watching this. He's not the same type of player as Jadrian. He's different, but he's just as effective as a passer. I think that they have very different styles. Jadrian's more of a deep threat guy. Chad's more of a pick you apart. But I think we can expect to see a lot more passing with him, short and intermediate. But I think he's going to be a very exciting player. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes around that 70% with 30 to 5 to maybe 40 touchdowns and like 5 picks. He's very efficient and he's very safe. I like what he brings to Rhein Fire. Secondly, Jordan Boer, former CFL prospect with the global pathway. He's coming off an injury, so this one's a big risk. You get a receiver whose fundamental building blocks are speed, athleticism, quick cuts and routes. And then he has a season-ending injury. He's a big question mark coming into this season. You've got a lot of other players in the Rhein Fire who are going to be looking for targets. We don't know who the A is confirmed as of now. So it is a question. Honestly, he is another former All-Star. He's a champion with Vienna. But we don't know what it looks like coming off this injury. That's going to be the big question. With a player who's built with that certain skill set, how he recovers, it's going to be an interesting storyline coming into next season. The big thing with Berlin was, again, they're another team that's kind of in the middle of the pack. They need to break out and do something. And they haven't really done too much towards the start of the offseason. A few signs here and there, a few very exciting ones. Nikolai Schumann, definitely the pinnacle of the Europeans. They've got multiple-time All-Star at tight end. He's just kind of like the identity of Berlin at this point. Connor Bolton, former IPP offensive lineman, athletic, big, aggressive. Just needs to be able to stay on the field. Had a lot of injuries over the last couple of seasons. That's kind of kept him off. But when he's on the field, he's one of the best that the UK has to offer because he's a former IPP player. You don't get that very easily. However, the big one is Jacob Sullivan. Of course, the first championship winning quarterback in 2021 with the Frankfurt Galaxy. Last season, he went to the Berlin Thunder, and a lot of people were like, is he going to work? Is he just a Galaxy guy? Can he do it outside of the system? Who's going to be winning that situation at the Galaxy and him? Who's going to prosper the most? I think it's fair to say that Sullivan did because he had a great season this year, was the passing yards leader in 2024, was among the top. He was kind of underappreciated for the work he was putting in. He has some really good moments. He's sneaky mobile. He is athletic. He's an efficient passer. Doesn't lose his head and start throwing a crazy amount of picks. He's a championship winner. And I think it's a great signing. I really do. He is kind of like one of the main faces of the ELF. So to have him in, keep some of the main players around him, insert some high potential talent, I think Berlin could maybe start pushing towards a positive record and maybe towards the playoffs. They just need to make more of those public signings because we've still got a lot of question marks around the rest of the team so far. Rounding it all up, thank you very much for spending your time with me today. It's been a blast. I love making these ELF Science Center. It's so much to me. It's awesome. I love being able to tell you guys about these signings. Like I said before, if I could talk about them for 5 hours, I would. I really would. But hope you have a really good day. See you next time. See you next Friday for ELF Science Center number 4. Thank you and goodbye.